Hello, everyone. I'm here with Ian Scott, Lehigh University triple jump school record holder. And I am also here with two-time Olympic gold medalist in the triple jump. He also has the second farthest jump in history and Greece ambassador for Heaven to the Yak, Christian Taylor. Welcome.
Thanks. Good to see you guys, and let's chat it up.
Yes, super excited. Okay, so first question: How did you get involved with triple jump, and why do you love it?
Yeah, so basically, I think like typical all-American story, I tried like all sports. My parents just said like, don't knock it till you try it, and like I was actually started with cross country, and realized once I like there was a big open field. Like when the race started, I would sprint into like the tree line, and then once I got into the woods, I was like, this is not for me, and so I'd like walk, and then there'd be like these gaps, and then I'd start like sprinting again where people could see. I found out that like I don't have that endurance lactic threshold. Like distances is not for me. Got into track and field, and really, like the coach was just putting us to different events that we can score for. I
Mm-hmm.
was one of the only ones that made it into the pit, and so the coach was like, "That's your event, right?" And so I was
Yeah.
like, "All right, cool. Like I'll do it for the team." And then like with time, I got more successful and like climbed the ranks quite quickly. And as a kid, it's just like when you're successful at something, you just kind of like lean into that a bit more. And yeah, like that was how like the seed of the triple jump began.
Yeah, so started off young, obviously. That's I feel like everybody does that. Then you find something that you love and that you're good at, and you keep doing it, and hopefully continue to love it. So super happy that you're still have the opportunity to do what you love.
Yeah, I jump in a sandbox for a living, right? And it's like I have the best job in the world. It got me college degree, and now I'm able to travel the world. I met my wife through the sport, so it's like track and field has given me so much. But like when I think about it, I get to jump in sandboxes around the world. Like I couldn't
Mhm.
have like a better
Yeah,
career.
what's better than that?
Yeah.
Not much.
Yeah, so Christian, speaking of jumping in sandboxes, I mean, when it comes to triple jump, you're the guy. Like multiple time Olympic gold medalist, world championships. So, what's going through your mind at a meet when you're on the runway during the jump? What are you thinking about?
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. I don't feel like I'm the guy until maybe when it's over, I can look back. But like while I'm going through it, you just still chasing. For me, as the intro said, I'm the second furthest all time, right? And that kills me because it's like no one wants to go out with number two, right? Like you go for that number one spot, the world record spot. So that really ties into that, like your question. What I'm thinking about every championship, every competition is like, what can I do to be the best ever, to be the GOAT, to be, the greatest all time. That is really what has fanned my flame. That has really driven me through the rain, through the cold. Like when I'm training by myself, that's all I'm looking at. Jonathan Edwards, right? 60 feet, 1829. Like it's it was an obsession, an unhealthy obsession for the longest time. And it's a desire, it's an addiction. Like I can use all these things to describe it. But at the end, when I got to those championships, like to be honest, I wasn't even thinking about my competitors. Like I was thinking I need to be the best, and I was competing. It was like if you play Mario Kart, you have that ghost, like when you're racing, like you're doing a time trial.
Yeah,
For me, it was like every jump, I was envisioning competing with Jonathan, right, and responding. If I was in Gothenburg, 1995, we're in that same championship. Like, what would I do? How hard would I have to push? And so I would just visualize that at training, at the competition, and so then when I win, like, yeah, I was grateful for it. And, like, I can be very grateful when I look at my career, but I can also tell you very transparently that, like, there's a lot of sad moments, a lot of disappointment because my ultimate goal was to be the best. And I still have not reached that. And so that is what keeps me going through injuries, through switching legs, through whatever adversity I've had to face. It's like, it's not over because I believe I have what it takes to be the best.
yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, like
Yeah, thanks.
a form of motivation that keeps you going as long as it's healthy motivation. But yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Finding that balance and making sure that like it doesn't become an obsession, right? Because that
Hmm.
could actually take you backwards.
Yes.
Uh, so yeah, Moving on to the next question. You briefly touched on this, but it's a physically brutal event, the triple jump. Um, so how do you maintain longevity in the sport? I mean, you've been triple jumping for many years now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, to be honest, I think it's just about having fun. So I like when I simplify it, the kids I mentor, there's one that would like just jump farther, right? So I can be super technical and talk about high performance and all this. And then the kids I work with are like, yeah, run faster and jump farther. Like that's all it is, and sometimes you do have to simplify things to get to the core, to the root. And that does make it a bit lighter, right? We're always seeking perfection. We're always watching film and trying to get that 1% of improvement. But it's like, you know what? Like, I just have to jump further. So I think having that fun element has been very important for my longevity, but also tapping into sprints. I love the 400. I love doing relays, and so doing that throughout my career also has been so beneficial because it's just like it's mentally allowed me to just step away, challenge myself in another area, gain respect from my competitors in another area, and then come back and be like, you know what? If I have to run 40 meters down a runway, I have no lactic, I have no one chasing me down. I have, like again, it just makes that much more fun. So I would just encourage like you or any other people like challenge yourself in other areas too, because it actually will mentally make you stronger, if not physically, in on the runway.
Yeah, that's great insight about sometimes you just need a mental break from the one event.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Are there like, do you have any like tips and tricks on how to like stay healthy and prevent injury?
Ooh, you asking the wrong person. I mean, I'm coming off of Achilles tear, right? So, and I've had to switch legs because of patella tendonitis. Like with some events, the hep, the deck, the multis, I mean, every event has its challenges, right? And so, my wife always tells me if it was easy, anyone could do it, right? And so this does make you have a greater appreciation for you pushing your body and how far you're going and the things you achieve. Um, but to be honest, the best thing I can pass forward from my experience is just to respect and listen to your body, right? Like, I talk about balance and making sure that you have a healthy outlet and something else to kind of just take you away from doing the same thing all the time.
Mhm.
But also, one things that my club coach told me very early on is you have to know the difference between like an injury or just like when your body doesn't want to go anymore, right? And so like almost knowing like when it's time to quit and when it's time to push through. And this is something that you do have to learn almost through experience and or through the fire or through trial. But there's so many athletes that like throw in the towel when their body's just saying like stop. There's nothing wrong with pushing through like that barrier, but there's also a point where you have to say like, okay, actually I'm endangering myself. And so I would say just get to learn your body. Body awareness is key, and know like sometimes when you have to just have open communication with your coach and be like, I think taking it easy today could actually save us next week, next practice. Because it's not always about pushing through. Because sometimes your body is actually saying like, I just need a timeout.
Yeah, it's definitely you have to have like a keen sense of whether like it is an actual injury or just some fatigue and soreness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's a fine line.
Yeah.
Totally, and it just comes with experience, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
for everyone.
It's trial and error. And that's the sucky part. Like, right? Like until you get shin splints, you don't like know where your threshold is of
Yeah.
how much I can do plyometrics and stuff. But it's like once you get to that point, you're like, okay, now this is where I need to pull back, right? Ice and stretch and foam roll and all that stuff. And it's like, okay, now I know how to be preventative.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then my last question for you before I pass it back over to Corinne is
Yeah.
what's your go-to pre-meet meal? So it could be like night before or a day of competition. What do you like to eat to get ready?
I mean, obviously now it's very different because I'm in different countries, right? So I couldn't, you know, it depends on wherever the cuisine is locally.
Yeah.
Just being mindful of what you're putting in your body is also really important, right? Like I'm not trying to go to junk food. I'm not trying to, but at the same time, when I was a college athlete, we had per diem. Seeing things are very different now, but right, like we had per diem, and it was like I was at Subway, and we had $5 footlongs. I was trying to make my money stretch as long as possible, right? So, or my teammates and I would get a pizza, and we would like ration this out, and so yeah, it wasn't probably the healthiest choices, but we were like, okay, how can we make our money stretch? Now I'm a bit more experienced and mindful, and just making sure, the almost the pyramids that we learned in elementary school, right? Like making sure I'm getting my vegetables, my omega-3s from the fish, lean meats, things that aren't going to be very heavy. Because at the end, you do, like as jumpers, you want to be as light as possible. And so if you eat something heavy, you're probably going to feel heavy, right? So I try to avoid burgers before competitions because I do want to keep it light. So just mindful of what makes you feel good and just stick with that.
That's funny you mentioned like the stretching out the money, especially in college, because we used to have this thing where we just buy like a whole rotisserie chicken.
Yeah.
And just eat that.
100%. Yeah, you got to make it stretch. And so we all know eating healthy can be very expensive, but we have to work with what we got. And as college students, right, like you just have to, you're doing the best you can with what you have, and so sometimes you have to be creative.
Definitely.
Yeah. So okay, so you've been, like Ian mentioned, doing this for a long time, and I'm sure you have some takeaways or things you've learned. So what are your biggest takeaways or the greatest things you've learned from the sport?
I would say it's something I still struggle with, but something I need to do better, and hope that other people can do better. Enjoy the moments, right? Like be in moments and recognize like when you're walking it or when you're experiencing it. For instance, like when I got to college, I was so eager to become professional. I was so eager to get a contract, and that's always what I aspire to. That I actually, like, it felt like college was a blink of an eye, right? And now when I think about it, like I got to college in 2008. Like this seems so long ago. And it's just like time does fly, and if you don't take the time to just really enjoy those moments and enjoy the team camaraderie, enjoy the long bus trips and like
Yeah.
at that time, I was miserable, but it was just like I can still remember like playing cards at 1 a.m. and watching my friends trash talk. I mean, at this time it was like PS3, PS4, but it's like trash talking in the room when they're playing Madden against each other, and it was just like, just that camaraderie was just so special. And then once I became a professional athlete, I had great success, right? I was a world Olympic champion, 21, 22. Like I reached success very quickly, and that was great. But the thing that people didn't tell me is how alone being a professional athlete is. You go from hotel to hotel, country to country. Most of the time you're exploring or figuring things out completely by yourself. Track and field is an individual sport, right? And so that unity, the brotherhood, for my sake, like that stuff was gone. And so if I was lucky, there were other teammates that went professional and were trying to continue their career, but it was not guaranteed that you would see them in the next week, the next month, and so sometimes you'd be in these foreign countries, don't speak the language, trying to figure out what you're going to do for therapy, what you're going to do for food. And it's just like, wow, you're very alone. At that time, also, I didn't even have like a phone that worked internationally. And so I was buying a SIM card, or like honestly hopping from Burger King to Burger King to just get Wi-Fi. And it's just like things like this that was just like, wow, I'm far away from my family. I don't know anybody out here. And so I just say that to really tell like you guys or anyone else that's listening, it's like, enjoy those moments, because it's going to be over before you know it. And that whole saying, like the grass isn't always greener. There's amazing things that like come with professional sport. Like I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, but there's also some really special things that come with like high school track and club track and college track. And so you just recognize, like sometimes you know, like when you think about back in the day, like if you're in those moments now, just enjoy that.
Yeah, totally. I feel like whenever I was competing in high school and elementary school for USATF in the summer, like I was like, this is taking so long. Like I want to move on. Like I want to go to college, do college track. And now looking back, I'm like, maybe I should have like slowed down and really taken those moments,
Yeah,
not
exactly.
for granted, but like
Yeah,
I'll never get them back. So yeah, that's definitely something, even if it's not track, just in life, just that's a
yeah,
really good thing. Slow down. Don't just go through the motions. And
100%.
so yeah. And how does faith play a role in your life on and off the runway?
I think, you know, they say where there's tests, there's going to be prayer, right? And so, you know, whether it's in school, you're praying to, you know, get through that final exam, get through this court, whatever it may be, or if it's in track and field, and you know, it's not even praying for success, but like, I mean, praying for health, right? Praying for that your relay does well. I I believe that like my faith grew with the sport, and I was baptized like at 22, so like I was a late believer to discover faith for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just through life experience, discovering that God isn't Santa, and you know, like all my competitors are his children, right? So like we're all sending up prayers like, hey, let today be our PB or PR, let today be my winning day. And it's like, well, if we're all sending up these prayers, like we can all be winners, right? And so that's when I realized, like, you know what, faith is more than just sending up a wish list and or to do list and hoping something return. It's like, no, it's a relationship, right? And I just want to like discover God's love and what God's like purposes for my life, and if that is through sport, uh, let it be. If it's through work, like you know, and it's just like just being in that vulnerable state, or stepping back and just being like, okay, like God, what do you have for me? And that was truly the question. This was actually almost the determinant factor of why I got baptized. Was, you know, after um, my first Olympic Games, you know, I was not in the final. I fouled my first two jumps in the Olympic final. And like I was the favorite to win, and I was literally in that moment. I was like, God, if you want track and field, like if that is my purpose for my life, and if this is how you want me to like touch touch the people around me, like show me, right? If not, like point me in another direction. And like I made it into the final the next jump, and I was just like, whoa, okay. And you know, it wasn't like I tried hard at, like I actually had to back up because like obviously I fouled the first two. So it was just like I don't want to foul out at my first Olympic Games. And I was like, okay, God, like clearly this is where you want me to be. Right. It wasn't about winning because I think I was almost second to last, but I was like, okay, like I basically was just like, okay, God, like I'm where you want me to be. And like now I'm just gonna steward my position however like you see fit. I ended up winning, and then it was just like, wow, like I already have like a testimony now, right?
Yeah.
Like I literally asked if this is what you want, and he was just like, yeah, like this is where I want you to be, and now I actually want you to tell people like almost a challenge you presented me. And so then, you know, all the interviews was just like, hey, you know, you're so young, you're Olympic champion, and I was like, actually, this was my coming to God moment, right? And I just felt like I could speak about God already, and I just felt so moved by this. It wasn't even about the victory. It was just like I just asked God if this is what He wants for my life. And then honestly, like through my entire career, I was just like, I don't want to be remembered for my performances. Like I want to be remembered for like almost how I competed and the energy I brought, and really like the joy I brought to my competitors, and all these things like outside of the numbers. Because I was like, I just want people to see God's love through me, or just see something different, and ask, right? Like, hey,
Mhm.
why are you like this? You just came dead last. Like, why are you still smiling? Right. And I'm like, yeah, because my identity is not in my performance.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I know I'm loved. I know how hard I've worked. It's just not my day. And I'm okay with that. Right. This is not like I'm cool with losing. No, I hate losing. But it's just like I also know that my identity is not in the numbers that reflect. And so yeah, I've just constantly just seek that and try to pass that on. And my faith has grown daily, right? Like it is a daily walk. But it's just always something that yeah, like I'm proud to be a believer, and I believe that like God has put me in this position to bless others and to have conversations, encourage others, and hopefully plant seeds that then he can go and grow and do his
Yeah.
things, in other people's lives.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to realize that your identity is not rooted in your sport or something physical on earth, but really rooted in Jesus. So knowing that and keeping that
Exactly.
in our heads, especially the better you get in your sport, the harder it can be to remember that. And then also using our talents to spread the word and be a light for people. So
For sure. For
yeah.
sure.
Okay. So last question. So you know a little bit about this. Women have been barred from competing in the 10-event decathlon in the collegiate and Olympic level. And like I mentioned earlier, you're a Grace Ambassador for Heaven to the Yeah, which is an organization that aims to empower gender equity and bring awareness to underrepresented sports like the decathlon. So why is pushing for gender parity in the Olympics important to you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the easiest thing is why not, right? Like why shouldn't it be equal playing field? But for me, it's just about identifying where the grounds where it's just not the equal opportunity, right? And it's like, okay, how can we correct this? How can we better this? To see the history of the women's multi, right? To know
Yeah,
that it was once a pen, now it's a hat, right? So it's like it's been addressed at one point,
we're getting somewhere.
and women have excelled at this. So it's why should we stop this? Why
Yeah,
why should the snowball, like why should it stop there? And I think it's so powerful for me if the title is equal to someone doing 10 events being the world's greatest athlete. Well, if a woman cannot have the opportunity to fight for this title, right, it's actually just not fair. And
yeah,
so I just think like everyone should be given the opportunity to be recognized for a performance or for an ability. And for me, because of a gender, like this disqualifies me. It's just incorrect, right? And so if women are willing and wanting and asking for it, let's give it to them. Let's
yeah,
do it, right? Like for me, I don't want to say it's an easy conversation, but it's just like, well, if people want, like, I could really understand if people are like, no, 7 is enough. Like, I don't want, fine, but it's like, no, we want this title and we can do it. So let's go for it.
yeah,
Right. Like, and so for me, it is a really easy conversation. I guess because I believe in it and I think like we should be just trying to like make the playing field equal
yeah,
for all participants. But I, I love that motto. Like, why can't a woman be the world's greatest athlete?
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And this is the time that athletes are speaking up. Athlete advocacy is at its highest.
Mhm.
Athletes' voices are really making an impact across the board, and I think this is just the time. The iron is hot, and we just have to strike now.
Yeah, totally. And we're getting somewhere with 'cause I'm also part of Heaven to the Yeah, so incorporated into the Let Women Decathlon movement, and we are getting somewhere, reaching a wider audience. We're having competitions that aren't through the Olympics, but they're on a world and global stage. So that's super cool that we're rallying everybody together and hopefully can get the Olympic Committee's attention. And then hopefully LA 2020 is what we're hoping for. So thank
Come
you
on.
for being involved in this movement. I love
That would be awesome. Obviously, bias, like it's on home soil, so
yeah,
let that be the first games. How fantastic would that be? But yeah, obviously, like it's gonna take a bunch of people buying in, supporting. But as you said, like things are the wind is to our back, right? Things are changing. Minds are opening up, and it's just like with World Championships this summer. I believe in Geneva, Ohio. Like it's just gonna just keep going.
yeah, yeah, wonderful. I'm hoping good things are on the horizon. So
Come on.
yeah, well, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the podcast with us today. We loved having you.
Absolutely, it's a pleasure. Yeah, great meeting you. Great seeing you both.
Yeah,
And yeah, I just obviously like going to be praying over you guys this season, and it would be great to see you guys at the trials.
yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yep, bye.
Bye.